You've heard of the law of attraction, right? Of course you have. The idea that our thoughts can literally shape our reality, it's everywhere. But what if I told you that what most people teach is an incomplete puzzle? What if there's a huge, critical piece missing? A piece that explains why just thinking positive sometimes fails or even makes things worse? Well, let's dive in and find that missing piece.
And this is where things get really interesting. This powerful idea comes from NLP coach Dr. Y.S. Rithor. While the whole world is obsessed with attracting things, he asks a different question. He introduces this counterforce, the law of repulsion. You know that frustrating feeling when the harder you chase something, the faster it seems to run away? Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
So let's talk about the big trap. You see it all the time. The law of attraction gets sold like some magic formula, right? Just sit on your sofa, visualize a pile of money, and poof, it'll show up. But as Dr. Rithor makes crystal clear, that's just not how it works. In fact, that kind of thinking, without the right internal state, usually just leads to a whole lot of frustration.
And this brings us right to the heart of the law of repulsion. It all comes down to one thing: desperation. When your desire turns into this needy, obsessive desperation, you create this intense, negative emotional energy. And that neediness, that feeling of I have to have this or my life is over, that's what actively pushes your goal away. You know, it's like trying to grab a butterfly. The more you lunge for it, the more it flutters away.
Okay, so if just thinking doesn't work and desperation actually backfires, what's the fix? What's the solution? Well, this is where neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, comes into the picture. Think of NLP as the missing link. It's the toolbox that can actually make manifestation work the way it's supposed to.
Probably the best way to wrap your head around NLP is to think of it like a user manual for your own brain. I mean, we've all got this incredibly powerful supercomputer between our ears, but nobody ever gave us the instructions. NLP is that instruction manual. It teaches you the language your own mind speaks so you can finally start changing your own patterns, habits, and behaviors on purpose, instead of just running on autopilot. Let's just quickly break this down. Neuro is all about your brain, your neurology. Pretty simple. Linguistic, well, that's about the language you use. Not just what you say to other people, but, and this is crucial, the words you say to yourself in your own head. And programming? That's about your ingrained habits, your automatic thought patterns. So NLP is all about using language to change your neurology's programming. Pretty cool, right?
Now here's a really mind-bending idea from NLP. Every single experience you have, every memory, every feeling, every thought, it all has a structure. And here's the kicker. If it has a structure, it can be changed. Dr. Rithor boils this down into a really simple, powerful equation.
And there it is. Experience equals V plus A plus K plus words. Now, I know, it looks like a math problem, but don't worry, there's no test. This simple little formula is basically the blueprint for every single thing that happens inside your mind, and it's the secret recipe for making manifestation actually work. So look at how perfectly these elements map onto the manifestation techniques you already know. V is for visuals, the pictures you make in your mind. That's your visualization. A and words are auditory, the sounds you hear, the things you say to yourself. Those are your affirmations. And then there's K, kinesthetic, the feelings, the emotions. And this one is the absolute game changer. Without the feeling, the other parts are just empty daydream. Okay, enough theory. The ideas are great, but how do we actually use this stuff? Let's get into a couple of really practical NLP techniques you can start using today to rewire your brain for success. One of my favorites is called the future timeline. This is way more than just positive thinking. It's about mentally installing huge, successful milestones into your own future. You vividly imagine these moments. You see yourself on stage. You feel the applause. You see your book launch. You imagine traveling, all the way to your 100th birthday, where you feel this incredible sense of a life well lived. You're basically giving your subconscious a roadmap to follow. Now, let's talk about another foundational practice that can totally transform your emotional state, and it all centers around this one number, 66. Why 66? Well, that's roughly how many days science tells us it takes to forge a new habit so deep into your brain that it becomes automatic. And the habit is so simple, but it is so profound. For 66 days straight, every single day, you write down 5 new things you're grateful for. The key here is new. It forces your brain to constantly scan your world for positives. And you can't just write it like a to-do list. You have to really feel the gratitude. That feeling, that's the K in our equation, and it's what makes the whole thing work.
So even with the best techniques in the world, people still get stuck. It happens. So what are the biggest roadblocks? Why do people fail to manifest their goals? Because if you can understand the obstacles, you can overcome them.
A huge one is your emotional state. It's pretty simple, really. You're either in a resourceful state or an unresourceful one. When you're feeling joy, confidence, gratitude, that's resourceful. You've got access to all your best stuff, your creativity, your logic, your problem-solving skills. But when you're in an unresourceful state, anger, fear, anxiety, it's like a door slams shut in your brain. All those amazing resources get locked away. You literally cannot manifest your best life from your worst state of mind.
Now let's talk about another massive roadblock, inner conflict. And it usually starts with a really clear, simple goal. Let's use a classic example that pretty much everyone can relate to. I want to be wealthy.
So you have that goal. But here's the problem. What if, deep down in your subconscious, you're also running these other programs? Beliefs like, wealthy people are bad, and I am a good person. Can you see the conflict? Your brain is trying to move toward a goal that it believes will make you a bad person. It creates a total stalemate. Your brain will sabotage you every single time to protect your core identity of being a good person.
So really, when you boil it all down, it usually comes back to these top 3 blockers. First, and biggest, is doubt. That's those limiting beliefs we just talked about. Second is using the wrong process. Mistaking lazy daydreaming for focused, emotionally charged visualization. And third is just plain old impatience, that need for instant results that fuels that desperate, repulsive energy.
Okay, this brings us to the big finale, a total reframing of this entire conversation. It's time to move past the pop culture version of attraction and finally understand the real psychological mechanism that's making all of this work.
Here it is, the big takeaway from all of Dr. Rathor's work. It's not the law of attraction, it's the law of association. Your goal isn't to magically pull things to you from across the universe. Your goal is to create such a strong, positive, and undeniable association in your own brain between you and the thing you want.
So what happens when you create that powerful association? Well, a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, which is basically its filtering system, it literally changes what it pays attention to. You know how this works. You decide you want to buy a certain kind of car, let's say a red Jeep, and suddenly you start seeing red Jeeps everywhere. They were always there, but now your brain is actively looking for them. That's what happens. You start spotting opportunities you were completely blind to before.
And this, of course, leads to the million-dollar question, the one skeptics always ask. Okay, this internal stuff sounds nice, but what about actually doing something? Where does action fit into all this? It's a fair question.
And the answer, funny enough, comes from this ancient piece of wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't get rewards for your work. It means that your power, your control is in the process, not the outcome. Once you've set that goal, once you've created that powerful association in your mind, you have to let go of obsessing over the result. Your entire focus has to shift to the work, to the process, to taking the next logical step right in front of you. You do the work because the work is the only part you can control. So the question to leave you with is this: are you going to keep focusing on the fruit, or are you ready to start focusing on planting the seed?